salutations, listener. It is I, the boy. Here with me, as always, when I discuss wrestling, is our fourth nerd, Sir Willem Klockman. And you're listening to the Two Nerds podcast. Before we get anything started, we should always remember to like the video, subscribe if you haven't subscribed, and don't forget Super Blizzard. His Shining Rosado song, Let's Get Hardcore, is our theme music, and it's an amazing song, along with a lot of his other songs. And his video games, like Joy Lancer and Puppet Kingdom. And I hear he's doing a Patreon soon, so look out for that. Now we got all that stuff out of the way. Oh, also buy Eric's book. I feel like I should mention it since he's not here. We're going to be discussing wrestling this podcast, specifically booking. Sir Willem here, he had an idea after the WrestleMania podcast of doing one for fantasy booking. How we would book the if we were given the book. So I figured it would be a good enough idea, and it has an extra wrinkle in that, aside from spoilers from the first Raw after WrestleMania, I don't know a damn thing about what they've been doing since WrestleMania. So my suggestions will be largely unspoiled. Billy, have you been keeping up week to week?
I watched the Raw after Mania, but aside from that, I not get much of a clue of what's going on.
Alright, so we're both about at the same place. Excellent. Well, since it was your suggestion that started us on this fantasy booking road, did you have anything you want to start off with?
Well, there were a few different discussions that I wanted to get to during the last one, but I don't know, we were just moving at such a clip, and I have trouble asserting myself, so I don't know.
Let's start with those then.
Sorry?
Let's start with those then.
Alright, well, one of them was just a general gripe about their whole WrestleMania moments thing. Like, they kept pitching, like, anything that happened on the show as being a WrestleMania moment, and I just thought that was kind of...
Yeah, I don't know that it's really their business to be saying what is and isn't a WrestleMania moment. I think that's more the business of the fans and their reaction and what they react to, you know?
Yeah. Because, like, the Paige and AJ win, that was not...
That was not a WrestleMania moment.
Yeah. But Daniel Bryan's win should have been, but I felt it was a little hindered by their billing it as such.
Mm-hmm. You know what? I don't even know that was it. I felt like it was hindered by the fact that they would not let that damn Yeselmania joke die. Cole must have made that joke 8 fucking times, I swear. It was ridiculous. And we get it. His thing is, yes, it's WrestleMania. They sound the same. Very cute. Fucking shut up. But, yeah, no, it seems like it's forced. And I think that's probably what the biggest deal is. And it takes you out of the WrestleMania moment when they say it is.
Yeah.
Like, it's one of those things that if you're someone who's cool, you don't need to say you're cool.
But then to quote Marge Simpson, well, how the hell else do you know you're cool? I feel like we've tried everything, and nothing's working.
Fair enough. Anything? Well, you said you had a couple things you wanted to point out about the show. What was the other thing?
Well, I also wanted, after a couple days of thinking about it, I think all three of us were really rather wrong in our a general complaint that Miz and Mizdow was not a match on the main card and such.
Really?
There's that really again.
Yeah, the really of, well, I don't agree, / think you're stupid, but would love to hear why.
Well, I think we're thinking back around, like, WrestleMania 17 and 18, where it was a big card, and it was a big to-do, and there was a lot of mid-card feuds to be done, but WrestleMania's changed since then, you know? This is no longer a card for, the main talent. This is just as many big matches as you can put on. And so, in that manner, I kind of agree Miz and Miz now maybe should not have been on the card.
Well, you see, that would be a fine thing to point out if it weren't for the fact that I'm not of the opinion WrestleMania should be just a big showcase. I would much rather it go back to being a match card for wrestlers to wrestle on. A good example is the halftime show, the musical interlude, I was not. I mean, it was good. It was fine. I just wasn't a fan of it because of the fact that it was taking time away from the actual wrestling. And Vince McMahon, I think he called it a pop culture extravaganza the day after. I would rather it be a wrestling show, personally.
Well, I agree, but I'm just pointing out that it has changed. I'm almost of the opinion now that they need to break WrestleMania up into like two shows, maybe an afternoon show and an evening show, or a Saturday show and a Sunday show, to give time for the undercard to actually be there, and you can do many main events without necessarily burning everyone out.
That might be an idea. I think that's partially what their idea with the pre-show is, to eventually expand the pre-show to essentially be the second WrestleMania. I mean, it was what, like 30 minutes, an hour long already this year, and I only see it getting longer because the WWE doesn't seem to understand that you can't overstay your welcome.
Well, it's WrestleMania. I don't think they could have overstayed their welcome for me.
No, I mean, that's fair, but like 7 hours? 7 hours is a long time.
My only complaint is that I did not have a piss bottle at the ready.
You know what? I can't hate on that response. What was? Do you have anything else about the show?
Not specifically about the show itself, but just there's a couple other points that I had.
Okay, what's up?
Well, a question for you, and I don't know, Whitey's back there if he wants to weigh in. I don't know, just looking at the oddity that is the fans' reactions. You know, Reigns is getting booed, Rollins is a heel, but he's getting cheered. Lesnar's turned face. Cena's always been getting yays and boos. Is it perhaps time at least in the main event section of the card, that perhaps we should not be looking too strict to have the face-heel divide? If perhaps, you know, WWE ought to make it just strong characters, not strong faces versus strong heels in general.
Well, I mean, yeah, I think it's been that time for a couple years now, to be honest. The fans at this point they're smart, and more importantly, they've grown rather entitled with their position. So, I think at this point you can't sell them a heel. They decide who the heel is. They decide who they want to boo. And you can't really make your live audiences cheer who you want them to cheer and still have good, active live audiences. So I think it's been time for a few years for them to focus on telling stories, not necessarily booking, very strong face-heel wrestling. The problem with that is a lot of wrestling is bound up in that psychology. Even how wrestlers are taught to wrestle a match is bound up in that psychology. The psychology of a match itself is bound up in face and heel. You know, the face starts off strong, then gets beaten down or gets, outwitted by the heel who's cheating. The heel gathers up some heat, gets some boos, get the fans riled up, and then you get that payoff with a big high spot and then a go home, and that's how you book a face win, and that's pretty strongly entrenched in how wrestlers learn their craft and how they practice it. So while I would love them to just focus on telling stories and not focus so much on face heel, when the very product they're selling is sort of in its meat and bones designed to be a good guys, bad guys sort of fight, it's hard to do. And it would be hard for them to make that change. I'm not saying they shouldn't. I agree with you. I think they should. I just think it'd be way more challenging than people outside the industry sometimes give them credit for.
Well, and that doesn't mean putting the match together. They can't, just listen to what the crowd is saying and go from there and how the match develops.
That would require them to have some more freedom, I think, than they currently have. Especially the wrestlers who don't really have the freedom to play off the crowd these days.
Fair enough.
I'd love that. I'd love a return to, the days when a wrestler could hear the crowd is not taking what they're selling and work off that. The other problem, I think, is that I want them to book strong stories. I don't necessarily, but if they're going to stop taking into account who is the face and who is the heel, I'd like for them to stop taking into account who the fans cheer and who the fans boo. Make a story happen. Let the fans decide who they want to support. If Brock Lesnar is going to be the mean, evil bastard who kills all their hopes and dreams and destroys The Undertaker and kills Michael Cole and they want to cheer that, let them. Don't change how Brock is acting. Clearly they like that. Just let them cheer who they want to cheer. Let them boo who they want to boo. If Roman Reigns is going to be the underdog who fights up past adversity and shows he can overcome great odds and they hate him because he's not Daniel Bryan, you're never going to convince me that's not the reason. Then let them boo him. Fuck it, let them boo him and let them buy Roman Reigns sucks t-shirts. Make them, make t-shirts that say Roman Reigns can't, or
I don't believe in Roman Reigns.
I don't believe that. Just a bunch of shirts that talk about how much he's shitty and sucks. Let them buy him. Roman Reigns gets money from that. Roman Reigns is happy. Cena's made a bunch of money off Cena sucks t-shirts. Roman Reigns is happy. He gets merch, and he gets over as a heel without changing his character at all. The fans will continue to boo him. They have a strong reaction. Your fans are loud. Your crowd is into it. And then they can buy the merch that reflects their hatred of this guy that they hate because he's not Daniel Bryan. And then you make money. It's the exact same thing they've done with John Cena. Just do it for everybody.
Well, at least everybody in the main event. I think the face heel still has a role to play in developing the undercard to get people to that point.
Yeah, I mean, give them something to work with. Give them a character to work with. A good guy, a bad guy, someone in between. But I think you're entirely correct, is the long and short of it. They should definitely be working more towards telling stories and less towards, all right, we want this guy to get cheers, so we're going to do whatever it takes to get him cheers. If he doesn't get cheers, then he's obviously not doing his job. No, Roman Reigns is doing fine. He's getting a reaction. It's just boos. Boos are fine. Boos are a reaction. The only bad reaction in wrestling is no reaction.
An interesting point on the Roman Reigns fiasco.
And it's the only point I can make because I'm so increasingly bitter at the WWE's fan base about that. So it's just fine. You want to boo him? Boo him. Don't change his character at all, or make him. I mean, if they're not going to focus on telling stories, make him a heel. Just full on make him a heel. They want to boo him, let them boo him. Fine, whatever. Make him a heel, strap a mouthpiece on him, and that way he can learn to cut promos from someone who's better at cutting promos. And then he has a good monster run as a heel in him. I mean, he'd be over already. It's, pretty simple booking, but for some reason they want him to be a face. And they want him to be over, and they're not willing to accept no for an answer.
Well, I think they made the right decision in choosing him, but admittedly they did kind of press on past the point of logic.
It's that he had to go away for that injury, because he was white hot before that. He was fine. And then Daniel Bryan came back right after he came back from injury, and Daniel Bryan was more over than anyone's been in the last 10 years. So, of course they wanted Daniel Bryan back, and of course they got mad when the spot that they believed was for their superhero, their underdog, Daniel Bryan, was given to this big, tall, handsome guy, when the entire Daniel Bryan booking angle, the thing that they chose to sell as what the bad guys are saying, is you can't be not tall and strong and handsome and be the face of the WWE. So when the short, bearded guy goes away, and then a tall, strong, handsome dude just so happens to come in and fill his spot, of course the fans are going to get angry. They basically wrote themselves into this corner. But I'm not even necessarily mad at the fans for booing Roman Reigns. Like who you like, don't like who you don't like. It's not the biggest deal in the world. I'm mad at the fans for booing Roman Reigns for the reason they're booing him, and I'm mad at the fans for booing Roman Reigns to the detriment of the career of a talented individual and someone who has a lot of potential for the future. Because make no mistake, if Roman Reigns cannot get over as a face, Vince will not be happy about it, and it will get taken out on Reigns.
Yeah, and it's still so baffling because he still got over at Fastlane. I mean, the biggest pop of the night was his spearing Daniel Bryan inside of his furry little boots.
Because Daniel Bryan can wrestle. Well, I mean, honestly, Roman Reigns is a good talent. There's still some holes in his game. Obviously, he needs more offensive maneuvers and some other stuff. And he needs mic work. But Roman Reigns is a good quality talent, and Daniel Bryan could get a good match out of a broom.
Well, yes, but he can get a good match out of the broom, but he can't get a crowd that is
they
totally
did manage
pro
to sell
Daniel
Reigns.
Bryan. I just don't think he could get Roman Reigns cheered over himself.
I mean, you're right. You're right about that. They really did sell that match at Fastlane well, and I think the match story at WrestleMania was really solid too. I think the fans were able to cheer Roman Reigns at that match at Fastlane, and less so at WrestleMania. But I think they were able to cheer him at Fastlane because Daniel Bryan was in the ring, and their favorite guy was in the match, so they weren't as mad at Roman as they usually are. So they were able to see the quality match in front of them and get into the spirit of the match and the story that was being told. They managed to take the anger out of the situation, and the fans naturally followed through with the story that the wrestlers were trying to tell them. I just wish the AE could find a way to do that on a more permanent level, because I mean it's not just Roman Reigns. He's the lightning rod. But there's a bunch of their gimmicks that are getting weird reactions recently because the fans are just so pissed off.
Yeah.
But that's neither here nor there. I've rambled on enough. Did you have any other things you wanted to point out?
There was one other thing, just something I noticed throughout the year from WrestleMania 30 to WrestleMania 31 was just kind of the appreciation for the wrestling storytelling, where you really can't appreciate a plot point until you've seen how it's handled in the long run. I came to this realization after Lesnar beat Undertaker at Mania, because I don't think there's one fan in the world that said, yes, this was a good idea, I approve of this.
You know what? I will contradict you. There is one fan, at least, in the world who said that. There's a guy at my work who was jumping with joy the next day.
Okay, but it was Brock Lesnar. You're working with Brock Lesnar, aren't you?
Yeah. Yeah, I'm working with Brock Lesnar. He's actually really, really into the office work that I do. It's what he does to relax in between murdering people.
But he only shows up for certain dates out of the year.
Well, yeah, of course. I mean, it's not like he's going to work full-time. He's Brock Lesnar. But, no, there's a guy who's a huge Brock Lesnar fan where I work at my day job and not a huge fan of The Undertaker, so he was, of course, super happy.
All right. Fair enough, I suppose. But
there was at least one guy, I had to say.
Okay, the sane amongst us.
Yeah, the rest of us.
My point is that just nobody could really appreciate that plot point, because we all rather wanted to see the Undertaker continue, but it could have been shitty entirely if they had sent him on to SummerSlam to lose to whoever was there, because it would have meant nothing. But the fact that they had that to build the title match at SummerSlam, which then built to the Mania.
It was definitely smart booking.
Yeah, it was just something I began to appreciate over the year, that I can't get mad at any one booking decision until I've seen where it's going. And
I like that mindset. I don't know that I entirely agree. I think ultimately what they did with the Undertaker win, what they did with Brock Lesnar's win over the Undertaker, they did what they needed to do to make that worthwhile, to get the most out of that ridiculous push. Problem is, I'm never gonna think that was the best call. I think it was at that point with The Undertaker as injured as he was going into that match, with the match he was up against, with the person he was up against in that match, if you want Brock Lesnar to be legitimate at all, walking out of a match with an Undertaker who was visibly not in shape to perform because of how injured he was, that was the only call. But I'm never going to think it was the best call, because I've always maintained that the Undertaker streak should have been broken by an up-and-coming talent. That should have been a career-making moment. Brock Lesnar didn't need it, but
and I agree to an extent, but I think you're not considering the fact that no matter who the fuck beat him, they were going to be the biggest fucking heel ever at that point. And it may have been a Roman Reigns fiasco again.
Well, yeah, but I think what you do is you turn into that skid. For instance, if he had beat Lesnar last year, Bray Wyatt beating him this year would have been perfect.
Potentially, but I think it's also a savior, the big damn hero, as some have put it. If Reigns had beaten Lesnar, as was obviously the plot, he would have not only been the guy to have stopped the Beast, to have taken the title. He would have been the guy who beat the guy that beat the Undertaker, and would have been he would have essentially gotten the credit for beating the Undertaker without having to get the heat from beating the Undertaker.
And
so
if that was their original plan, that's a good way to transfer that heat. Obviously, they couldn't go with that plan. I imagine, unless they really, really get scared off of Roman Reigns' push, which isn't impossible, but unless it really happens, I expect to see Roman Reigns beat Lesnar eventually. I'm expecting that to happen. But
he would have to be the first guy to do it. I mean, if say Lesnar versus Rollins at SummerSlam happens, Rollins can't beat Lesnar and have it still mean the same thing for Reigns to beat Lesnar.
Yeah, you're right. If Rollins beats him first, that Rollins gets the heat. That's just how it has to work, because Lesnar's been so dominant. The first guy to get a clean pin on him is the guy who gets all the heat from pinning Brock Lesnar. And Brock Lesnar's doing he re-signed a deal. I imagine, given what I know from the first Raw, after WrestleMania, it's the same kind of deal he had before, with limited appearances and no TV wrestling. So, I mean, I know he got, suspended indefinitely on the first Raw. I don't know what's happened since then. I might be saying something that is wrong even as I say it, but I expect we don't see Lesnar for a couple months. Go ahead.
I'm sorry, go. Well, I was just going to say, really, that it's, I was kind of hating his deal at first, the limited appearances, but I think they're playing it right. Every match is a big deal. Every match is a big fight moment.
Mm-hmm.
So I can't be too mad at this idea, and in fact could be extended to a lot of other legends. Like Sting could have that kind of a deal. The Rock could have that kind of a deal. Jericho. It's an interesting evolution of the contract idea.
I'm not super fond of it, because if you're going to be the WWE champion, you don't have to defend the title on TV. I'd at least like you to be there. Not necessarily every week. I can understand, the mystique of, back in the day, the champ not being there every week, so the weeks the champ was there was very special. But Brock Lesnar should be there, and should probably wrestle on at least one Raw a pay-per-view cycle. That, I think, would probably be better, because I understand the idea of making everything he does a prize fight, making everything he does very important. If Lesnar's there, you can't miss the match, because it's not a thing that's going to happen every week. If Lesnar's there, it's usually going to be pay-per-view, so you should buy the damn network. But it's just not... It's not the kind of mentality that I want to see get pushed, because I don't want other big stars taking it on. Because not everybody's John Cena. If other big wrestlers can get really over and then decide they want a limited contract, while that frees up some space for other wrestlers to get over and other guys to get time on the show, the WWE has proven that's not what they'll do. They'll just talk about that guy while he's not there. And I don't like that idea, because that's even less wrestling in my wrestling show. A good example of a way that same sort of gimmick can be booked, not better, just differently in a way I'd prefer, is the NXT angle with Kevin Owens. He's booked basically the same way Brock Lesnar is. He came in, he completely destroyed everybody, he's still completely destroying everybody, and he's doing what he does, but he also wrestles on NXT, and not just their pay-per-view equivalents. He just looks really strong while he does it, and Vince McMahon made a good counterpoint there. He said that how many times can Brock Lesnar really beat somebody up? So if Brock Lesnar's going to have that gimmick, he needs to be limited. And
yeah.
I can't dispute it, but I don't like it, you know?
Yeah, it shouldn't be too many people having it, or it lessens the impact. I would also like that he would have at least a little more, be around a little more in the build to his matches. Like, the build to Reigns versus at WrestleMania, that could have really used more Lesnar there, I thought.
Yeah, he did a couple interviews, a couple sit-downs with Cole. He did, a couple things, but it could have used more physicality, honestly.
Yeah.
But that is what it is. But it does represent a good segue into the fantasy booking segment of the show.
Damn straight.
So, let's get to that.
Yes, let's book our way into Extreme Mania.
Yes, Axtram, whatever the thing is. The place where they hit people with chairs. That one. You want to just run down the card and talk about the matches they had at WrestleMania and where to go from there with them?
Sure.
Alright. We'll start with the pre-show. We had the giant fuck-off tag match. Honestly, I think this is just a good way of talking about where they are in the tag division and what, as armchair bookers, what we would do to try and improve the situation, because I don't think they're in a good place with the tag division right now.
It's definitely an interesting position. They have a lot more stable teams, but there's no clear forward place to go, especially with the Usos essentially being out at the moment.
There's no real place to go, and there's no stakes. And this will get around one of the chief points as an armchair booker that I'm going to be saying. I'm going to be armchair booking from a complete place of lack of reasonability. This is... I'm not going to be like, well, that's not reasonable, so let's have... No. This is what... If I had the choice, if I was the guy, what I would do. First things first, replace those damn belts. I know it sounds silly, but those belts look awful. They're not good looking. They don't look prestigious. They don't look valuable. So it's... in a belt's capacity as being the, trophy, the thing that you're fighting over, the reason, ostensibly, these guys are disagreeing in the first place and wanting to punch each other in the face, it's important that it look like something you'd want to go for, and nobody wants to wear a Trojan condom penny.
Well, I can't disagree with they look terrible. And news for the U.S. title is apparently they're looking into getting a new faceplate for it, so maybe we'll get a new faceplate for the tag titles.
Oh, God, I hope so. And you know what? That's all it needs. I'm even okay with the big circly shape, the weird oval. That's fine. Just make it silver or gold. Make it look like something someone would want to go after. And I think that's step one. Step two is give the tag team division more TV time. Not just for matches. They already have amazing matches. The Usos are incredibly talented. Cesaro and Kid are really good and talented and have a surprising chemistry for how little they've been together. The Matadors are really good. Honestly, they don't get anything in the way of anything, but they can have good matches. And the guys in the New Day are obviously great wrestlers. So they don't need more time to have good matches. I mean, they do need more time to have good matches because they need time for matches in the first damn place. But they need time to cut promos. They need time to establish gimmicks, make disagreements, have a fucking feud.
Which is a point we had, I think, back at the Fastlane pay-per-view, where the Usos just didn't feel as big as they could have been because they just weren't given the stories.
Which, I mean, near as I can tell is because they can't cut promos to save their lives. But that's fine. Give them a mouthpiece. Because they're really good in the ring.
Mm-hmm.
But it's just... and honestly, I think that's all they need for the tag division. They have solid teams, talented guys who do good matches and entertain the crowd really, really well. I would prefer a different gimmick for the New Day. But if that's the gimmick they want to go with, okay...
Well, and not to cut you off.
No, please. Feel free to cut me off.
Well, fuck it, I will. There seems to be some developments that they might be turning them heel.
I'll believe that shit when I see it.
It's either that or Biggie had a little too much to drink and went off on Twitter at one point.
I mean, that's more likely. I would love a different gimmick for them. Like I've said since the beginning, since they started selling this by having Xavier Woods come out in Malcolm X, costume, essentially. Do the Nation of Domination again. Everybody loves that gimmick. Everyone loves the Nation of Domination when you talk about it. Do it again. Just do it again. You don't have to call it that. Call it something different. But, look, real talk. Wrestlers of color do not get a fair shake in the WWE typically. So a group of people who are mad about that is still a good gimmick.
And that would be a very interesting feud with the primetime players if they wanted to say, well, maybe we agree, maybe we don't, but we don't like the way you're going about it.
Yeah,
and
definitely.
Right there, feud.
Definitely. But if you want to keep the One More Day, that's a Spider-Man thing. If you want to keep the New Day gimmick and have them just be fun guys who entertain the crowd, fine, perfect. I don't care. Let them talk. Let them cut a promo. Let them have a party in the ring. Let them do, old school Rikishi dance-offs. Let them do something to give them character. From what I understand, the guys in New Day cut promos and do skits and shit online on YouTube. I haven't watched them because I like White mentioned to me in a personal conversation, said I don't feel like I should have to do homework to enjoy my wrestling program. But put some of that shit on TV. You have 3 fucking hours to fill anyway. But
yeah.
Honestly, do you have any other points for the tag team division? Because honestly, I think more time is all they need.
Well, I like to think that the best sign of a healthy tag division is when you get some non-title feuds in there as well. So, like, the New Day and Primetime could go. Personally, if I were booking for the next pay-per-view, I'd probably go with Tyson Cesaro versus Los Matadores and the Ascension versus the Lucha Dragons, which have come up from NXT, as I understand it.
That's good. They're good. They're solid Lucha teams, so...
So do you have any specific matches you would book for Extreme Rules, or?
Extreme Rules matches, I think you had a big clusterfuck match at WrestleMania. Go with a single tag match. Go with a tag match with 2 teams squaring off. You want it? I understand Extreme Rules' whole thing is every match has to be extreme, spelled with an X first, like we're in the 90s again. So make it, Edge and Christian style, a ladder match, a tables match, a chairs match. Don't go full TLC. Save that for the pay-per-view you named TLC, you idiots. But have them do something with a prop. Just one, not a full Extreme Rules match, not a full, no disqualification match, just a prop. Something that they can work into the match, but can set aside to also wrestle. So that it doesn't turn into a full garbage match. Because these guys are all talented athletes. You don't need that. I would put it first because, to be frank, it doesn't have the swag to be anything but the opener at this point. Build to it throughout the pay-per-view cycle, fucking obviously. But I think you're right. I think a non-title tag division feud would be good. I just don't think it has a place on the Extreme Rules card. I think it'd be good to start. And then maybe put it on the next month's card, but you're going to have to sort of lead into that.
Well, you could easily do it on the pre-show. I mean, they're going to put something on the pre-show. It might as well not take away from a real feud you're wanting to get over.
Yeah, definitely. I'd say putting something for that non-title feud on the pre-show would be definitely a good idea. I forget the pre-show exists because I don't watch it. All right. I think. Did you have any specifics for the tag for the Extreme Rules?
I have no thoughts really on any gimmicks, but I would do the Ascension versus Lucha Dragons. Get the Dragons over as just good faces for the future, and give the Ascension an actual win, something that kind of means something.
Put that on the pre-show maybe, and then whatever the title match ends up being on the main.
Yeah.
Yeah, I like that idea.
You could do Tyson and Cesaro versus New Day to maybe give New Day the turn that they're looking for, I think, or...
Honestly, you could pull a double turn pretty easily there, because the crowd wants to like Cesaro.
Oh, there you go. That would be interesting. Although I might want to run through the heels on the division and then do the turn. That way, then they can go through the heel face, whatever, you know what I'm talking about.
I know what you meant, yeah.
Good.
I know what you meant. Don't know if the listener did, but I got you. The next thing was the Andre the Giant blah 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 bullshit. Okay, Big Show won this. Here's my booking. This is next level booking. So get ready because I'm gonna blow your mind. Big Show for this next pay-per-view cycle and the next 5 pay-per-view cycles goes on vacation and goes away, and then comes back later to do something Big Showy. But give us a break of the Big Show. We don't need more Big Show in our lives. He's a really nice guy, but his work rate has gone down recently, and he was never that good to begin with in terms of actual wrestling. And there's other better people who could take his spot on the card. So that's my booking for Big Show. Your thoughts?
I can't really disagree. I've tried to think of ways Big Show could be, super relevant again, but the only thing I've ever really come up with was like maybe one final push for the title, just as a one final thank you. And like he has to work his way from, like the Authority pisses him off, they make him work his way from the bottom up, and his matches are just 1 minute KO punch, he walks to the back.
I like that. I say after his 5-month vacation, you start him on that long push towards one final title run, because I mean he's been an absolutely integral piece of their machine for so long. I think he deserves something as like a really big, you did really well. You had a really great career, and I know he's not out yet. I know he's not out of gas yet. He has more years in him, but he deserves something because I like the guy personally, and he's good, solid, dependable worker. But he needs to be off my television for a while. Because, frankly, he's fucking boring as it is right now.
Yeah, and he could use it to slim down a bit if he can. I
mean, he can. He's proven in the past that he can. He can slim down more than you might think. He has trouble with it because he has a glandular disorder, but he can.
I thought he got that fixed.
He did, and that's how he was able to slim down as much as he did. But he still has problems. So I'm tired of it, Apparently we might be running a little long here because we're at like 38 minutes, but I'm comfortable with that because we haven't even gotten halfway down the card yet, and I want to cover everything. Just warning the listener, it might be a little long. So, the actual story of this match, Miz Dow, that I'm interested to hear how you want to book that into Extreme Rules.
Oh, fuck. The logical way was to end it at Mania, and...
Yes.
which was the fucking problem. Yeah, I don't... I almost think you have to split them away, try to get Miz Dow over on his own. Miz does his own thing, and then never quite completely separate them, but keep them apart enough that it doesn't get stale, and close enough that we can get to a SummerSlam match.
You think maybe Extreme Rules isn't the time for them?
Again, I don't want to drone on too long, because then nobody's going to give a shit. But
because it's already been a long time.
I know, but it deserves a big recognition.
Yeah, you're right. It deserves that big payoff. I think you can do it at Extreme Rules if you do something like a real big thing, like a street fight, and not like one of those lame the things street fights become recently, but like if you do say something that isn't necessarily a very extreme sounding, doesn't have the word extreme or the name of a weapon in it, but do it like an I Quit match. You can book them into an I Quit match for Extreme Rules, and that's a great way to put over whoever you want to put over.
I think if I were going to give it a gimmick for Extreme Rules, I would go with like a Falls Count Anywhere and really let them go back to Attitude Era. They brawl in the fucking back. They destroy shit in the back.
That would be good.
Let the blood feud come forth.
That's essentially what I would be wanting out of an I Quit match anyway. Is a really ridiculous brawl.
And it doesn't even necessarily need to be I Quit. It could just be,
the
Miz has to apologize.
Yeah. You know what? No. A double apology match. Whoever apologizes first loses.
There you go. That would be interesting. It's a neat twist on the I Quit match. It's the I'm sorry match. You're going to beat the shit out of them until they're sorry you're beating the shit out of them.
Until they admit that they did bad. I like it.
Yes.
I think you could easily book to that for Extreme Rules, get this feud out of our fucking hair, pay it off, and then you can easily split Miz or Mizdow, whoever you're pushing. I would really fucking hope Mizdow, but that's not me disliking the Miz. I love Mike Mizanin. I think he's a really great story of a good wrestler turned into a great talent, but fucking this entire gimmick was built to sell Mizdow. Putting the Miz over now would be a complete waste.
Yeah, but the question is, can you bring Mizdow back from being so comedic? I mean, that's usually a death knell.
I don't know that you need to, because I don't think, realistically, I don't think Damien Sandow is going to be WWE champion. At least anytime in the next few years.
Yeah, but he could be a very solid Intercontinental title champion.
Right. And you can do that comedically. You can do Intercontinental title and be a funny guy. You can do U.S. title and be a funny guy. You can be part of the tag scene and be a really funny dude. Santino did it for years, and Santino's gimmick was utter complete camp. He was a talented wrestler, but it was utter complete camp. I think you can do that. I don't know that you necessarily have to make him non-comedic. I think
you at least need to give him some seriousness, because he hasn't had that in a while, and it's easy to forget that he can be.
That's true. You would need to give him something more than just being a goofball, but I think you can do that by selling that he's actually very good in the ring. Sort of unexpectedly. Like, oh look, here's this ridiculous goofball. He's not going to be a big deal, and then in the ring he actually kind of takes you to school a bit. That can be a good gimmick, and it doesn't make him be serious, because while Damien Sandow is an amazing Lanny Poffo, like he does Leap and Lanny Poffo, he does the genius gimmick really well. I haven't seen him as a face, so I can't judge whether or not he can do it well without being silly. You know?
Yeah.
I don't know that he can sell that fire that a more serious face is supposed to have. But I don't have anything else for this feud or that whole thing. Do you?
Not really, unless you want to just run down some of the lower card guys here, see if there's anything that jumps out at us.
No, I mean, a lot of that stuff can be worked into the other things, because there are a bunch of lower card guys in this match I would love to see get more stuff, but they can be worked into the other feuds. I don't think after WrestleMania, I think Extreme Rules is kind of your reset pay-per-view, and after Extreme Rules, if you wanted to push some more new guys, you can do that. But Extreme Rules is Backlash. It's about the fallout from WrestleMania.
True. Which brings up, I'd really rather the Backlash pay-per-view be back instead of Extreme Rules.
Agreed. Backlash was a great pay-per-view. I don't know why they got rid of that name.
And they could have even used Payback, which is one of their other ones. That that still works as the theme.
Yeah, it's because the show is still about the aftermath to WrestleMania, so I don't know why they didn't continue theming it that way. But that brings us to the Intercontinental title match. Daniel Bryan going over there. I, like I mentioned on the WrestleMania podcast, didn't see much of the build-up for this, but I love Daniel Bryan going over here, and I think this represents an excellent booking opportunity to make the Intercontinental title look good again.
And like I said, I think the point of the Intercontinental title ladder match, or at least if I were the one booking it, would have been to say, okay, here are the general parameters of this division. Here's the people you can expect to bill it in the future.
And you know what? It seems like that's what they were doing. It seems very much like in the build going up and all that, it seems like they were going, all right, here's your Intercontinental title scene, people. These are the guys you can expect to be in it. And I like that. I like it because it allows Daniel Bryan to be a face champion, you know, the guy who takes all comers and is very much a fighting champion, like I'm sure he wanted to be with the WWE title when he had it. And it lets him bring prestige to the title by having a lot of really good matches, helps bring its legacy back, helps... he doesn't need any help getting over because he's fucking Daniel Bryan. He's more over than the moon. So I think it's...
And he's also made of cheese, I hear.
Much like his lunar friend. I don't have any specific plans for who should be in the Extreme Rules match. I don't know that I want another multi-person match, but if you're going to put a multi-person match on the card, this is where you're going to do it.
I suppose, but I really don't see the need for any multi-person match, really. I think, again, like the Intercontinental division, the mark of a good heated division would be a non-title feud in it as well.
Yeah, and you could easily do that with, honestly, any of these guys. Any of these guys could easily touch off a non-title feud with each other, and they're all good enough to do so with really no additional reasoning. I would say, ultimately, the match I would like to see at Extreme Rules is an Extreme-style gimmick thing, because that's necessary for the pay-per-view, and I'm not going to change what pay-per-view you're booking, because you've already made all the signage. But
you're so kind to them.
I know. I'm really generous. I would say the match I want to see is Bad News Barrett versus Daniel Bryan at Extreme Rules. Fox Anywhere match, no DQ match, any of the 9 things they say that all mean the same thing now. Just anything like that where they can use some weapons, throw some people into some stuff, you know, generally make a mess, and have Bryan go over clean. It's really simple, +1/+2 booking. Barrett didn't get beat for his title. Barrett wants a rematch. Barrett gets his rematch. Barrett loses clean. Then you can put Barrett, without dropping him down the card, keep him in the Intercontinental scene, but start him a non-title feud with somebody else, because Wade Barrett is another one of WWE's amazing fucking success stories of the last few years, because he's amazing now, and you can put him in a non-title feud with someone else, and then rotate somebody else in to feud with Daniel Bryan. And whether Daniel Bryan wins or loses, I would hope he wins. I kind of want Daniel Bryan to have a nice long run with this title, because he does the underdog come from behind victory so absurdly well. But I think he should really definitely win this one.
Yeah, you can't have him lose it this quickly unless you have a specific story in mind, because the crowd's going to fucking hate that. If he loses.
Like, if you have him lose, then you have him lose to put over Bad News Barrett as a heel, because fucking he's going to get meteoric boos.
Yeah.
And the fans will hate the rest of your show. So, watch where you put it. Anytime Daniel Bryan has lost a match since he came back, the fans hated the rest of the show after it. Daniel Bryan losing just takes all the wind out of their sails. But I think this division's actually fairly healthy. I would enjoy them cutting some more of the main events, 2 of the 3 hours of Raw, and giving a little bit to the Intercontinental title, just to allow for some non-title feuds and stuff, because they used to work that shit back in when they had 2 hours of Raw back in the 90s. I don't see why the extra hour has allowed them to do less undercard booking.
Yeah, don't quite understand that either. And yeah, the division's fairly healthy. I count about 10 people that could be considered in that area.
Yeah, definitely. I'd say it's a healthy division, doesn't need a lot of help, doesn't need a lot of retrofitting at this point. Needs more time, needs some, as you put, and it's a really, really good point, needs some non-title feuds, something besides the title to go after to give it more action, more, dynamic sort of flair. And aside from that, I think it's good. I think the booking there hasn't been super great, but hasn't been anything that I really took umbrage with.
For the non-title feud at Extreme Rules, I tend to think now is really the time to do Ambrose versus Harper, because those two would both give us the match of the night, I think. Yeah,
they would do a great garbage match. It would just be a fucking garbage match. They would just kill each other with trash can lids, but good. We need one of those on the Extreme Rules card, I think. And yeah. I think it would be it'd be a lot like Bray Wyatt, Dean Ambrose. It would be just a complete fight, and it would be really entertaining. And I cannot disagree with you. That's a great call. That brings us to Randy Orton, Seth Rollins. This is a part of the whole main event thing, so I say we just keep it until we talk about the main event. You cool with that?
Sure.
All right. Because I don't necessarily think that Randy Orton and Seth Rollins have anywhere to go from there, so it's mostly just both of them being in the main event. Triple H and Sting, I don't know. The end of this match was so goddamn weird, I have no idea what to do with it, to be honest.
Well, Triple H isn't going to wrestle again for at least another year, and what the hell do you do with Sting? I mean, the question is he going to be around? I guess he might have answered that on the Raw or something. It was a post-show interview or whatever, but depending on whether or not Sting's even going to wrestle again is the question as to whether or not to worry about it.
Yeah, and I can't answer that for Sting. If he is going to wrestle again, oh dear Christ, feed him some fucking jobbers. Fucking give him wins, because you just blew all the wind out of his sails by having him come in after 14 years and lose to Triple H. Feed him some fucking people. You need to make him look good. You need to build him up as a credible person again before you can... Because he's Sting. He's got star power, but he needs to be... The fans need to believe that he can win matches.
And you know what would be the best next match? Because he probably should be restricted to the Big Four. I wouldn't mind seeing Sting versus Cena at SummerSlam.
Yeah, sort of the Cena checking boxes off on how many big faces from previous eras have I beat up now?
Yeah.
But
I think you could have it be just a good two big faces fight each other, a respect match, and Sting could go over and it wouldn't hurt either of them.
See, here's the problem. No fucking chance Sting goes over in that match.
Why you gotta be such a downer, man?
Like, this is me throwing away all chance of reasonability. If I was the guy, here's what I would do. I still don't think just Sting goes over in that match. I don't think John Cena would agree to it. I don't think Sting would agree to it, to be honest.
Well, fuck the both of them. It's their match. What do they think, to get a say in it?
Ideally, I'd like to have John Cena lose that match if it were to happen. But if John Cena's going to lose clean, that happens so rarely, I don't know that it wouldn't be better served going to somebody else. I like the idea of Sting in a big match with another face and going over and, and putting forward of how good he is, but at this point, with him in exactly the position he's in, I don't know that him beating John Cena doesn't just make John Cena look bad more than it makes Sting look good,
I guess I'd have to see how the audience is in general reacting to Sting after Mania.
Yeah. That's one of those things that's hard to book without seeing what the audience is doing. If the audience is still super into Sting, I can see going forward with it. Otherwise, I don't know.
But, the only other person I'd see to book him at a big thing like that would be either Rusev or Wyatt, and if it's Rusev, I don't know that he needs another loss this soon.
He certainly doesn't, and if it's Wyatt, why we gotta keep bearing Bray Wyatt? What did Bray Wyatt do? Whose elevator did he fart in? What the fuck?
exactly. That's why looking at the notes I have here of just who's on the roster, Cena's the one that jumps out at me.
I mean, you're right. If they're gonna book Sting in a big match, Cena's probably their best go-to. Keeps him out of the main title scene. Gives him some time with the U.S. title without having to defend it, because he can't defend it against the guys who usually go after the U.S. title, because by all internal WWE logic, he should eat them alive. So it's just...
Which is something I hate, the logic that those people at the top have to just demolish the people on the bottom. It would do so much good for a Jack Swagger just to go 10 minutes with Cena. Even if Swagger loses, at least if he looks like a badass, he gets over in loss.
And Swagger's a former world champion, so I think they might do that. But, like, who else is even going after the U.S. title at this point?
I know that Stardust had a match last Raw.
Yeah, Stardust. By all internal
I'm fairly
WWE
certain
logic,
Cena won.
Yeah, by all internal WWE logic, fucking John Cena should eat Stardust alive. Because John Cena is the last son of Krypton. Him losing is a big deal. He should kill most people.
Well, and the thing is, I wish the story of Cena's matches would be a little different. Instead of his, dominating the lower guys from the get-go, it would be more of a Hogan thing where they're even, the heel gets the edge, and Cena has to white boy up or whatever to come back.
He has to get the hustle, loyalty, respect juice flowing through his veins. Load the spaceship with the cancer kids and
crash it into the sun.
Or whatever the metaphor is. I think we lost the thread of that metaphor at some point.
I mean the idea of Cena loading children onto a rocket just to kill them because of the sun.
See, ultimately I think you're right. In terms of a just pure armchair booking, not taking into account the talent's preferences and that sort of thing, I think Cena doing some more classic face wrestling, where he gets beat on a little bit by some lower card guys, might damage him a little, but it would certainly be worth the rub that the other guys end up getting. And Cena's got many, many years left in his tank because, let's face it, he's a mutant. He has regenerative powers, much like Brock Lesnar. And so he's got many years left in his tank, and I don't necessarily know that you want him out of the main event forever, because he's still one of your top draws. But if he's going to be out of the main event for a while, and it looks like he is, use him to his fullest extent and have him wrestle honest-to-God matches with lower tier guys, because it will also, you're right, it will also make them look really good. If we're just completely throwing WWE's booking out the window, their previous booking, then yeah, definitely I think you have the right call there.
And it would be an interesting story if, maybe Cena's not giving it his all in those matches, and somebody gets an upset non-title win over him that builds into a title match.
Like Cena's getting cocky. Maybe he has a couple really strong matches where he fucking flattens some people and starts to believe that maybe he's a little better than the U.S. title division's competition. Maybe he's John Cena. Maybe he doesn't have to, hustle so much. And then maybe that doesn't turn out so well for him. I like that. That's an interesting wrinkle, and it'd be an interesting thing for John Cena's character to go through. It would be a little bit of a change to John Cena's character, which again must throw entire WWE booking out the window because that is verboten. But I think it's not a bad call. We skipped the Divas match, which is fine because I want to talk about that too. But before that, where do you see Rusev going from here?
Where do I see him going, or where is he going? Because they have announced what his match at the next pay-per-view is.
No, I don't want to know that yet.
Okay.
But where, just pure booking, just taking WrestleMania into account, where would you want Rusev to go from here?
Honestly, I think after Mania, I'd give him a month or so off. Let him just sell it as he went home to Russia, he's licking his wounds, and then you can have him come back. Some face is a little cocky, gets into his face, they get into a match at whatever that pay-per-view would be.
Yeah, that's certainly not bad booking. Maybe sell it as him Again, maybe partially, I love booking Rusev as a secret face that the fans boo because of xenophobia. Have him, instead of selling it like he's licking his wounds, which the announcers will obviously say, but have the video packaging and what Rusev's doing look like he lost to John Cena, so clearly something's wrong. He was sent back to re-education camp in Russia, and now he's sitting on a mountaintop somewhere lifting heavy boxes, getting his swole on like Rocky in Rocky IV, ready to go back and beat the evil American Drago.
That's a good point as well. Show him that if going back for a Cena Rusev 3, that would definitely be the way to go. Show him he's getting into shape. Like maybe he took Cena a little too lightly at Mania and was too cocky after Fastlane.
And have him split off. I mean, they obviously want to split him off from Lana because Lana is a pretty lady, and that it's easier to sell him as a heel if there's no pretty lady nearby. So, yeah. I mean, if you really want to double down on that, have him split off and have Lana stick around to be his Paul Heyman, to talk about how Rusev is in Russia, doing all these things, lifting all the heavy boxes and whatnot. And then when Rusev comes back, just completely blows her off.
Yeah.
That gets over what you want to get over, helps turn Lana face, which I sense is what they want, and I have no issues with.
Well, but here's the question: what the fuck do you do with her then? That was her sole existence, was to manage Rusev.
That's really easy. You do Miss Victoria. You have her get a new client and have her sick that new client on Rusev.
But the new client can't beat Rusev, so it's gonna damage her and the client. True. I think.
I don't know if that's true. Rusev's already lost now, so now losing can be a part of his gimmicks. I think you have Cena Rusev 3. I don't care who wins that at this point. I'm talking about after that. Lana comes back, having turned face, with her new client, somebody who couldn't beat Rusev before. Have it be one of the America guys who could not beat Rusev. Jack Swagger, Mark Henry. I would prefer Swagger because I like him better. And Swagger needs a mouthpiece like I need air. Man,
it was killing me how often they were throwing Swagger to him. I refused to watch the last one just before Mania. It almost made me cry thinking that he was just going to lose again.
So have it be like Swagger, who was the guy who couldn't beat Rusev. And now with Lana on his side, instead of being so much America and taking a more international approach to just beating up this asshole here, this Rusev guy who's just a douche. I have a Russian on my team too. You can be Russian and not a complete cockbag. See, look at Lana. And have him fight Rusev with Lana's inside information into how Rusev thinks and works, and then you can have Swagger go over, and that, while it doesn't do many favors for Rusev, I think that's still a good enough gimmick that it doesn't hurt him at all either.
Yeah, but again, like we talked about at the Mania podcast, we don't want Rusev to lose too often. We still want to keep him super fucking strong.
We don't need Rusev with a hip hop gimmick. But
oh come on, you don't want to see him and Rikishi
not
get
at
funky
all. Not at all, because he's going to get Future Endeavored 3 months after that.
But imagine the Russian Worm. No,
and he could do it too. He's flexible. If that was going to be a thing, but he wasn't going to get Future Endeavored 3 months later, I would still hate it, but I wouldn't hate it as much. But I think Rusev needs a gimmick change eventually, because it's just not, his gimmick just isn't one that can last long term.
Well, you can easily just eventually drop the Russian thing and just have him just be a fucking badass like Lesnar is.
Yeah, but then you have to give him something else, because otherwise he's just going to languish in the mid-card. But that's too far in advance.
Fair enough.
WWE doesn't book more than 1 month in advance. I booked 3 so far. I'm already doing triple the work they do. I'm gonna let it die at there. But I want to go back and talk about the Divas match, because I actually do have some fucking notes about this division.
Oh shit.
I heard there is one spoiler from after the first Raw that I got. I heard AJ Lee retired.
Yes.
So fuck.
Yeah.
But you still have Paige, you still have Natalya, you still have Naomi, you still have a bunch of good wrestlers. Here's my new, shall we say, booking direction for the women's division. Well, first off, women's division. Okay,
Yes.
that's booking note number 1. Booking note number 2. Have the diva, have the Bella, whichever one has the title, I forget, the boobs one.
Head boobs.
One of them got a boob job, so that one.
Nikki.
Yeah. Have her lose that. Just lose that title as quickly as you possibly can. I don't even care who it's to. Someone who's an actual wrestler, preferably. And then the Bellas go away.
You are wrong. They are solid useful in the division.
I don't agree. They are solid useful as entertainment. They both cut awful promos. I understand they're very popular on the Total Divas show. I don't give a fuck about the Total Divas show. So I really don't care if they're over or not on the Total Divas show on E! I'm booking a wrestling program, so I'm going to go with people who can wrestle whenever possible. So I'd say keep them on the show. That's fine. Have them cut promos. Have them be accompaniment talent to other wrestlers, like they were back in the day. They were fine in that position. They're not. You know, they might be great wrestlers. They're not showing me that. So I say put the title on someone who can show me that, who has been with the 4 minutes that the Divas have been getting, and then you give them more damn time. And this is not even on the tag order. I'd say give them like double what you give the tag division, because the tag division is already pretty healthy. The Divas division needs some extra love because they need the time to build the damn division in the first place. Because it doesn't exist, essentially, right now. I say, like you mentioned earlier, do some non-title feuds. Do a title feud at the same time and push the title feud as more important than the non-title feud, because that's been a problem with the Divas division. But definitely do both to keep things dynamic. Get some of the NXT talent. It's going to sound shitty because you're kind of cannibalizing a bunch of NXT's female wrestlers, but they're wrestlers. So they are desperately needed on the main roster. And then let them wrestle. Let them tell stories. Let them book a fucking match. I don't really care what it is. Paige is obviously your most set-up face at this point, because your other biggest set-up face, who was the most over, fucked off with Phil. So definitely give them more time. Give them, however much you give the tag division, give them double that. And give them a couple matches. It's more time than you necessarily maybe want to do long term, but you got to give them that time to give them time to get over with the fans as a thing the fans give a shit about. And my final booking note, and this is almost as important as thing one, as women's division. It's secondary, kind of tied to it. Oh my god, get rid of that fucking butterfly belt. Give me a title that looks like something that someone would actually compete for, please.
Yeah, the old school WWF belts were very good, I thought.
Yeah, the old school women's title looked fine. Fucking go look at the UFC female, the women's UFC championships. Those look good. Fucking just make it look like something that should have some respect to it. And that's about, that's big, rough, broad strokes, because at this point, none of the Divas has enough of a fucking character for me to even be able to book a specific match for Extreme Rules. Now I could. And right.
Just while you were talking, I developed an idea based off your return to a women's division.
Alright, I'm listening. I'm dead interested.
Let Paige be the driving force. Just kind of in general continue with the Bella feud. I disagree, keep the Bellas on. But have her come out and say, I'm tired of this diva division shit. This isn't about divas and this is about wrestling. Women wrestling. And have her announced, like, she's going to bring back the old women's title belt.
Like, have her win it off the Bellas and then have announced, all right, this butterfly belt looks ridiculous, and it clashes with my outfit anyway. I'm sick and tired of this Divas Division bullshit. This is about women wrestling, and I'm bringing back the women's title, and I'm issuing an open challenge for the WWE Women's Championship on Extreme Rules in an Extreme Rules match for any female wrestler on the roster who's woman enough to accept it. And then actually let them wrestle a hardcore match.
That's an interesting idea. I had a slightly different thing in mind. Just continuing the Paige Bella thing. Paige, like you said, says, I'm tired of this Divas shit. This is women wrestling. I'm bringing it back, non-sanctioned, like the $1 million title belt for a little while. And she says she's hosting a tournament for NXT and WWE. And then you have her go through to the finals, obviously, and then you have someone that you're bringing up like Charlotte rip through some of the WWE divas into that match as well. And then for a little while you have both the divas and the women's, and it can, again, I'm kind of semi-booking SummerSlam here, you could have that converge there, and then the winner goes on with the belt being maintained, whichever one wins.
I like it. Sort of like a tiny miniature feuding federations thing.
Yes.
I like that. I must say I like my idea better because my idea has no Bellas in it. But ultimately, I would not say no to that gimmick either. I think the women's division should probably go over in the end. But
oh yeah, definitely the women's should go over, and that would be a nice, the heel gets their comeuppance. Paige does a resurgence, and if you have, like, say, Charlotte beat Natalya in the semifinals, that's a feud to go forward with non-title as well.
Because that's really two really solid wrestlers who can put forth a real good feud.
And have a reason when Natalya's pissed that Charlotte beat her.
Yep, and I like that. I like that a lot.
It's not that hard to book wrestling.
No, it's not terribly difficult. It's more difficult with the Bellas, but it's still not that difficult.
You are wrong. You are just jealous that you are allowed to look, but you are not allowed to touch.
God, no. I actually don't find them that attractive. Now, Paige, that's a different story, but I do not find the Bellas that attractive. Let's see here. That pretty much, I think, just leaves the main event, doesn't it? Oh, no, there's the Undertaker Bray Wyatt match. Here's my real short note for how to book Bray Wyatt. Give him some fucking wins.
Well, there you go. Extreme Rules. Who would you give him a win over?
Someone who's nice and established, isn't busy at the moment, is a solid superstar who has some years to him, can put on a good match with Bray, is a face right now, because if you want to book Bray Wyatt as a fucking heel, he needs to kill faces. That's how that works.
What about Ziggler?
No, I don't like Ziggler. Well, actually, that might be good because the fans love him, so if Bray Wyatt kills him, he'll get that delicious, delicious Roman Reigns heat. So, I mean, that wouldn't be bad. I was thinking Randy Orton. And
I don't know that I would do that considering what I might do with the main event.
Oh, all right. That's fair. I think having Orton just having turned face, it might not be the best move, but Ziggler works just fine. That's a compromise I'm happy to make.
But I could see Wyatt Orton at SummerSlam to give Wyatt a big win.
Yeah, definitely. Have Wyatt start racking up some wins against big faces, just to keep things moving. Mm-hmm. I like that.
And Wyatt's another one of those guys where he's really heel, but they're cheering him, so he could use that main event not being too specific that he's a heel.
Yeah.
And how you're doing the stories.
Yeah, I just have him and Randy Orton, ostensibly two heels who are getting cheers right now. Because Randy Orton's still a vicious bastard. He's just aimed at the people they don't like now. So I like that. I like that SummerSlam story. I think Wyatt Orton would be a good match. Ziggler's a good intermittent in Extreme Rules, puts on a good Extreme Rules match with Wyatt, I think. Keep him in the Intercontinental Division after that. Have it just be sort of a one-off, and then he goes back to the Intercontinental title division. I want him to win the Intercontinental title eventually, because Ziggler is legit and deserves to be treated as such.
Well, and with Ziggler, I'm expecting they're building to Bryan versus Ziggler at SummerSlam, which is fantastic in my mind, because it brings you back to Bret Hart versus Mr. Perfect.
That's actually very canny booking. Yeah, no, I got no problems with that either.
And just for anyone listening that questions, well, you're booking Extreme Rules, why do you keep bringing up SummerSlam? It's just the way I see you needing to book the WrestleMania season. You know, the Raws and SmackDowns build Extreme Rules and Payback and so forth. Those pay-per-views build SummerSlam, Survivor Series, Royal Rumble. All of that goes to build WrestleMania. And so you have to look at it as the macro, all of it, not just
you sort of book is like at a high level, building to the next big tentpole pay-per-view.
Yeah.
I'm much more of a show-to-show booker. I would prefer that each individual point in the story be as specifically maintained as possible, and the big tent poles should come from paying off good stories rather than focusing on those long-term stories to the detriment of individual pay-per-views. Every pay-per-view should be important.
Absolutely, but you should build WrestleMania 1 year in advance, and
6 months.
6 months? No, at least 9.
No, I mean, that's if we both had the book and had to come to sort of Pat Patterson, Vince McMahon agreement. I would be willing to haggle you on this, but for my money, 6 months. A year is too long. A year is
I'm thinking like one special attraction match and or the world title match. Not necessarily the whole card. You can't know who's not going to be injured, who's still going to be with you, who's, so forth. At that point, yeah, I could agree with 6 months for the undercard-ish.
Yeah, 6 months, 7 months maybe, and you certainly shouldn't start fucking hyping the actual matches until, like, maybe 5-6 months beforehand. And that's just pushing it. A couple years ago, when they fucking were pushing that Rock Cena match all damn year, I got tired.
And you don't need to necessarily be hyping, okay, we're going to see Bryan versus Ambrose at Mania 6 months in advance, but you should be building their stories to get to that point at least 6 to 9 months ahead.
I can't hate on that. I'd like some more long-term planning from the E. I don't necessarily know that I have any ideas that long-term at this point. At this point, I'm sort of doing triage. I'm trying to fix the horrible problems you have, and then once things are nice and healthy, we can start booking long-term.
Well, see, I'm going right out of the gates going, this should go for SummerSlam, this should go for Mania. I don't think on a small scale, clearly.
I like it. But that brings us to the main event.
Mm-hmm.
Whole main event, holistically, what do you see going forward for the main event? How do you want to move forward with Seth Rollins as the new WWE champion and Brock Lesnar? We both know about the first Raw, so we know Brock Lesnar's probably going to be out for the next couple months. So what do you do?
Well, the Lesnar thing wasn't a surprise. He works limited dates, so you really had to get him off TV anyway.
Yeah, like it's just how he works. And you gave him, it was a really good excuse because there's no reason he wouldn't be pissed off about that situation. So I'd say that's a really solid booking move for them, given that Lesnar works limited dates. Personally, I would not have signed that deal with Brock Lesnar, but that's in the past. I can't do anything about what they already did. I'm working with what they've done from there forward.
Yeah. Which basically brings us Orton, Rollins, and Reigns to book, essentially, right?
Orton, Rollins, Reigns... And, I mean, you could probably mix in a couple people just here and there, but that's going to be your big three going until the Les Man gets back.
Yeah. And the Rollins taking the title at Mania was just really solid booking.
Yeah,
say what you will about some of the bad decisions, that was a really smart one because everyone's lining up to get to Rollins.
And I couldn't. Everyone saw it coming. Everyone called it, and it still was the best decision. I would rather it have happened after the finish to the match, but that's personal preference for me and how I like to see wrestling booked. I can't hate on it too much, and thinking about it, it ultimately, Rollins walking out of there with the championship, best possible booking decision.
Mm-hmm. But between those three, I don't see. No matter what you and I think that the fans should be accepting of Reigns, they don't. So I don't. Right now, I think we would need to pull Reigns back. And
see, I don't know that you need to pull Reigns back. What I think you actually should probably be doing is having Rollins try and lightning rod the fans' hate to him, because he can easily do it. I want to see Rollins have a nice long run with this title, 4 or 5 months, something like that, something real substantial. Just completely weaseling out of every match, walking away when he can, cheating when he can't, getting 9-on-1, gangbang handicap matches when he can manage it. Just every dirty, shitty trick in the book. Have him be a complete scumbag who won't fight. Because fans hate it when you won't fight. Because they want to see wrestling matches. So, I mean, complete scumbag. And then, I don't know if you can get Roman Reigns over as a face. I don't know that I, even as a booker, would want to be given that fucking mandate. That's gonna, if you're really, really, really sold on Roman Reigns as the new face of WWE, the fans will cheer him. God damn it. I don't know that as a booker I would want to be given that mandate at this point. Because at this point you've made them hate him so fucking much that there's very little you can do to get him cheers. But this is where that don't book face heel, book storyline thing comes in. I would rather book the whole main event holistically. Just completely disregard the fan reactions. So long as they're reacting, everything's going well, as far as I'm concerned. If they're booing, cheering, I don't care. So long as they're reacting and tuning in, and there are eyes on the fucking televisions, and eyes on your network, and butts in your seats at your arenas, I don't care what their reaction is.
But would you really go Reigns versus Rollins at Extreme Mania? Or Extreme?
No, that's way too early. I say Rollins, he can't weasel out of a match at all. So he's got to be on a match at Extreme Rules. He's got to be in a match. I say he weasels it into like a triple threat match, and then spends the whole time bouncing Orton and Reigns off each other. Like, he rolls out of the ring, avoids conflict when he can. Just completely sell how good he is at what he does, sell how much of a mastermind he is, and have him just completely roost these two and get them to beat the shit out of each other, much like he did at WrestleMania, and he snipes the win off one of them. I don't care who.
That's not a terrible idea. I think what the fans are basically wanting, they don't want Reigns in the title picture at the moment, and that's, for whether or not we agree, that's a good opportunity to take Reigns a bit out of the picture, not lower him to mid-card, but take him out of it long enough to give him the wrinkles that the crowd are wanting him to have. So I would go with Rollins versus Orton. Orton, I think, is next in line. He did beat Rollins at at Mania. That stupid little show.
See, I don't know that I can agree there, because the fans are never going to want Roman Reigns in the main title scene. At this point, they just hate him. They're not gonna forget that. Fans in the 2010s era don't forget shit. As long as Roman is still on TV, they will still boo him because he's not Daniel Bryan. And they see him as being shoved down their throats whether or not he's actually winning matches or not. I don't buy that the fans don't continue to hate him. So if they're going to continue to boo him, that's a loud fucking boo. Use it.
Right. I just think we could give him the time away just to get a few new wrinkles into him. Personally, what I was thinking was you have to address it. You can't ignore it. That's just going to make it worse. like
I'm
the
okay
cyst
with
on my
making it
back.
worse. I am actually fully okay with making it worse. If I can get Roman Reigns to be acting like a complete blue chipper face and having the absolute fucking burning, arena-destroying hatred that Rocky Maivia did, then the eventual heel turn that you're gonna want to do with Reigns, because look, no one should be John Cena. Everybody should turn heel eventually. Is going to be all that more meteoric because the fans finally get to boo the guy they wanted to boo, and he's finally shown his true colors that they always knew he was. I think it actually makes it a more effective heel turn the more you continue to shove him down their throats.
I can't entirely disagree, but I like the idea of letting him loose on the mic on the first Raw out of Mania. Just let him address it, like.
Oh yeah, he should constantly
have him tell his story. You know, Reigns, he came in with the Shield. His Shield buddies had his back, and you know, everything was great. And you know, Rollins screwed them over. Then the fans had his back, and he thought that he needed people to have his back. And then the fans turned on him. They didn't have his back anymore, and he was desperately wanting to get it back because he felt he needed them going into the match with Lesnar. And now, after Lesnar, he realizes he doesn't fucking need the crowd. They just like being jerks, like bring The Rock into it. And what I think is, one of the Usos is injured anyway. You start pairing the healthy Uso with Reigns, and have it be clear that no. I hear you're going to say I'm wrong. Shut up, just a second. But have it be like Reigns' promo basically ends with they're gonna cheer him or boo him, whatever the fuck he does. He's just gonna do what he does, and that's when you build an Uso versus Reigns at Extreme Rules. And in the build, you have Reigns getting ready to spear whatever the fuck the Uso. I'm just calling him the Uso now because I don't remember. And you have him coming in for the spear. Naomi gets in the way, and Reigns stops. So now he's kind of a heel, but with a moral streak. He's not going to spear Naomi. And then you can have Reigns not go out of his way to injure the Uso at the pay-per-view, but his spear bruises a rib, whatever. You get that Uso off screen, and then you can just let the Usos sit off screen as well. And now Reigns has a new wrinkle to his personality.
I don't know that you want to immediately jump into the Roman Reigns quasi-heel turn. Because that's the exact quasi-heel turn that I want him to do. I definitely want that. You know what? I'm not going to change how I act, but if you assholes want to boo me, fine. I don't care anymore. I'm me, fuck y'all. That's the exact sort of accepting of the boos heel turn that I want Reigns to do. I think you're right about that. I don't know that you want to do it right away. Because I think you can still... Because of the beating he took at WrestleMania, which he did take a beating, and it was sold very well that he was, this is my jam. This is the fight that I was looking for. Because of that, I think you want to give him a good month of, to quote CM Punk, make Roman Reigns look strong, that the fans are going to really be mad about. And then do it. If you want to do it quickly, that's fine. Give it at least until after Extreme Rules.
I could go along with that. Build Reigns and Uso as that team that's not going to make it, but they're there. They could have the non-title tag feud into the Extreme Rules, and then they kind of quote unquote implode afterwards.
I don't like the idea of putting Roman Reigns back in the tag division, but if you want to take him out of the main event, I don't know where else to put him. So
yeah, well, and the point would not necessarily be to put him in the tag division, but just give him something to get him long enough that he's far enough away from Mania he can do that quasi turn. And putting Reigns and Uso versus the New Day or whoever you want to be big faces, they're going to get big cheers against Roman Reigns, so they get the rub off of Reigns being booed.
Yeah, I mean, that's entirely possible. I just don't like the idea of taking Roman Reigns out of the main event, because and this is kind of, it's not petty, it's just a bad precedent to set. I don't like the idea of capitulation. If the fans are going to boo Reigns until he's out of the main event, and then you take him out of the main event, then you are setting an incredibly bad precedent for your audience. Because if your audience can hold your show hostage, then you're not booking the fucking thing anymore, they are.
A fair point. Booking into Extreme Rules, you don't necessarily need to have him not be fighting the main eventers. It could be Reigns and Uso versus Rollins and Kane, or Rollins and J&J, or, you could still book him face and main event.
Like, sorry, go. No, you're right. That would be more fine. I'd be more fine with that, because he doesn't necessarily need to be in the title match. I think a big triple threat clusterfuck match is perfect for Extreme Rules, because you don't want that at WrestleMania, you don't want that at SummerSlam, but there's 3 dudes, and they all have beef, and it would be a really good place for them to fight it out. And an extreme match is a really good way to have guys, get hit with a fucking chair or get killed through a table and take a couple minutes off while 2 guys wrestle, and it gives them all the ability to share the load, have a good match. I think that's a good book for Extreme Rules, but if you don't want him in the title match, I'd say that's a good way to go. Just don't take him out of the main event. He needs to be fighting main event talent. He needs to be in the main event, because if you capitulate to the fans at this point, you got him to WrestleMania. He didn't lose to Daniel Bryan. You're all in on Roman Reigns. You can't take him out of the main event now, because then you have set that precedent with your fans again that they book the show, not you.
Mm-hmm. Of course, you could put Reigns versus Big Show at Extreme Rules, let him take Big Show out, and then Big Show goes out for the 4 or 5 months that we were wanting.
But that means Big Show has a match at Extreme Rules. You're right. I mean, that's fine. That'd be a perfectly fine match. I've just seen Roman Reigns versus Big Show as many times as I think I have hairs on my head. So...
Well, but you're not expecting it to be a good match. It's a match to further a story, not necessarily, hey, this is going to be Ziggler versus Bryan.
This isn't going to be a barn burner, folks. This is a set piece match, and you're not wrong. Just so long as it isn't a stairs match.
I didn't get to see that. I don't even understand what that is.
TLC last year did a stairs match. It was hands down the most boring fucking match I've watched. It's Big Show versus Mark Henry. Just awful. Just awful.
What did they have to walk up the stairs to get a title down?
No. The ring steps. The ring steps were a legal weapon, but nothing else. So they had 40 ring steps around the ring.
Oh fuck.
Yeah, it was as awful as it sounds like it would be.
Yeah.
Perhaps slightly more so. But I think that runs us down the card. I think we're all set. Is there any other final booking notes you wanted to make?
No, not really.
All right. Well, I think that wraps us about up for this here podcast. Tune in, obviously, next week. Same bat time, same bat channel, as it were. Since we're about to head out, Billy, last time you didn't know your line. Do you remember it this time?
Everything is better when nerds talk about it.
Hooray!